Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the podcast, Evil Dungeon Master Universe podcast. I'm your host, Evil Dungeon Master Vince, and hopefully you're having a good Friday. Yep, we made it to the end of the week. It's Friday, folks. Let's hope that your weekend is going to be awesome and you have some gaming plan. If you don't have any gaming plan, at least you'll be reading something, hopefully, or thinking about gaming, because that's mostly what I do. I have a game starting tomorrow, Palladium Fantasy, and it should be a lot of fun because we're continuing the campaign and wrapping things up after finally I think, 2 to 3 year long campaign run, and that should be fun. Then we're gonna be heading into a new game, and that will be fun too. I think we're gonna be playing Starfinder just to mix things up just a tiny bit. I'm not sure. That's what most people were voted for. But yeah, finally, Palladium Fantasy will be ending, and that'll be the last Palladium game we'll probably be playing for quite some time because we played a whole bunch in a row. And I guess the group wanted a little bit of a change. So, yeah, you can't blame them. People want a little variety in gaming. And I appreciate that. I have so many games on my shelf, and I want to get through a lot of them that I have just to at least try them once. And solo RPGing while playing by myself is fun. It's just the group interaction is a lot better, especially playing role playing games. I mean, I love them both, but sometimes it's a little bit more fun to play with your friends, especially with role playing games. With that said, I'm going to dip into the email bag today because I have an email that's interesting because it's a game that I have on my shelf that I've never actually played at all. I collected it, a few supplements of it. And I shouldn't say supplements, a few books of it. I actually have the original core rule book, and I picked up another one along the way somewhere. And I also have the companion, which is kind of rare, and the notebook as well, which is kind of a weird actual notebook, like a binder, a 3-ring binder thing. Underground by Mayfair Games. It came out towards the tail end of DC Heroes, and it was written by the author who actually designed up most of DC Heroes. So he came out with his own game. It was kind of a political parody type thing. It was a satire, grim and gritty style superhero role playing game set in the near future. It was released by Mayfair Games in '93 as a commentary on politics and society of the early '90s, expressed through the year of 2021. Looking Reading it now and thinking about it, it's kind of weird because some of the things that they decided how the society was broken down. And this is one of those games that if you play it safe, you're kind of a wimp as a superhero. But if you take a risk and you go too far, your character could die because you can genetically alter your character in this game, and it's actually a pretty interesting read. Much like, I can't think of the game. It was by West End Games. There was a political satire about politics and things like that. But Underground basically is a superhero game. The mechanics you would think were like DC Heroes, but they're not, because a lot of times the GM will roll against your attempt when you're rolling something. So if you're rolling against a door to bash the door down, the GM could roll higher than you when it comes to the mechanics of the game, and the door beats you. Or you just don't break the door down. It's just however you look at it. Either way, it's not the D10 modular system how DC Heroes had it, where it was actually pretty interesting and evolving in a great way. No, a lot of people call this game DC Heroes Lite, because it changes the mechanics around a bunch and makes it a little bit easier for the GM. You don't have to use charts or anything like that. Well, it has a somewhat of charts, but not like you think. Again, I've only read the book. I've never actually played the game, so I don't know how it plays. Some people in the community have played the game itself and say it runs okay, but it's one of those games that it flew under the radar, and I don't even remember it coming out. I remember picking it up at a comic book store around 2000, and I'm like, oh, what's this by Mayfair Games? And I thought, oh, okay, maybe they decided to, go forward with a different version of DC Heroes because they, lost the license. Well, I didn't really know what was going on then. But I just knew there was no more editions of DC Heroes coming out, and I thought maybe this was the closest thing they had. because it was a superhero labeled as a superhero game, and it was a satire on superheroes, and I love things like that. So I thought maybe why not pick it up. So I picked up the core rulebook, and I remember reading through it at the time, and I was like, meh. And then I grabbed the companion, which is supposed to help with character building and helping the world. And there's a whole bunch of books. You can actually get the entire collection on Drive Through RPG because I'm looking at it right now. I wasn't sure if it's still available. Yeah, 12.50. But according to some of the reviews on here, the scans are absolutely awful, and the layout of this book was suffering from that weird layout that people started doing in the late 90s and early 2000s when it was like a really bad background with writing on it that you could barely read. Um, there's a couple books that I've talked about that does that, and it's just I don't understand why they did that with these books. I know they wanted to put flavor into like Army of Darkness by Eden Studios, the Buffy books, Angel, and the rest of them all suffer from this too. And they're beautiful to look at, but to read, it's just like what? No, I can't read these things. And Player and Underground by Mayfair was the same way. It had this style of a weird background with a font that you couldn't even read on it. I mean, maybe because I'm just older now and I have to wear glasses all the time when reading stuff, so it's a real pain in the ass. But I don't want to sit there trying to struggle to read my RPG book. And I get that you want to put some flavor in it to make it different because all RPG books back then all had black and white, white paper, black font, or gray graphics and non-color. And then we got finally the ability to put color in every page because it was cheaper. I don't know. It just never struck me as why would you do that? Oh, and D6 does that too. The original D6 core books that came out, the D6 Fantasy, D6 Space, and D6 Adventure or Modern, whatever it's called, all suffer from that weird background thing going on with the font, and I can't stand that. It makes it really impossible to read it sometimes, at least for me. But this game has about I'm looking at it on Drive Through RPG because I don't recognize some of these things. And honestly, I didn't know that there was even a player's handbook for this game. Looks like there's 8 books total for this, including the notebook and the character sheet. So that'd be 10 total. Has some kind of like setting module information type thing, adventures. There's a GM pack. You could probably, I mean, it's all on sale right now or discounted, maybe because there's a sale going on. I'm not quite sure for Mayfair Games, or they just want to get rid of the PDFs. I don't know what. I guess you can't get rid of a PDF, but you can pick up the core book for 12.50 if you're interested in it, and it's an interesting read if you can get past the background stuff. And it's a weird look of a 90s view of the year 2021. Reading it now through 2024 eyes is just weird how the 90s predicted the year 2020s. I don't know. I always thought the 80s had a better perspective look on what the 2020s would look like, and the 90s kind of I don't know, they failed at it most of the time. But it's an interesting book. Pick it up. Grab the companion, which is $9 as well. And once you get those two things, you don't really need anything else. If you really want the player's handbook, if you're going to play, get the player's handbook. They're all $9 right now. These supplements might be worth it to try it and play a game with it. I don't think I've never actually played it, and I'm thinking about it right now while I'm reading the actual website and recording this podcast. I'm thinking, did I ever play this game? No. I think I attempted to actually run a game for this, but I just ugh. Trying to read this thing was just driving me up the wall. And and you can't even search the PDF as well. It's not even OCR or anything. Well, you can OCR it pretty easily. But I was thinking if I was ever going to do that, I would probably OCR it and then pull it out of there and make my own book of it just so it could be easily read and searchable. 2D10 system and DC Heroes Lite. That's the only way I could describe it is DC Heroes Lite. And the person who wanted to know about this was Doc Thompson. Actually, was his name. As that's how he signed it. He's a longtime listener of the podcast, and he was reminiscing about classic games. And this one came up from his mind because he's played it a couple times and wanted to hear my thoughts on it since he knew I was a DC Heroes fan. And I have a blog, the Gotham database. So, and I do run the DC Heroes on my channels with Jeff. We play our co-op game, Nightfall Bay, and I guess maybe he's listening to that as well. Hopefully, if you're not, you can go to youtube.com/theevildm, and you could listen to those actual plays of us playing DC Heroes without a GM using the Game Master emulator. Some crazy things really happen with it, and it's kind of fun. Check it out, folks. All right, with that said, I'm going to head out. Keep it original, keep it old school. Remember, there is no drama, no clickbait, and all gaming here on my channel. Hopefully, you enjoy that. As we move closer and closer, an inch closer and closer to 5,000 subs, there'll be a live stream on my channel tonight for channel members if you'd like to join in. If you don't worry about it. You'll have the ability to watch it afterwards. And then once that's done, you'll probably be able to it'll be released to the public this weekend for people to watch on their convenience. So with that said, we're going to head out. Good night, everybody.